My dear brothers and sisters, tonight the year will change whether you are ready or not. Time will move forward without asking your permission. But here is a question most people never ask themselves. What exactly are you taking with you into the new year? Not your goals, not your plans, but your habits, your thoughts, your reactions, and your heart. Because many people do not fail in a new year. They fail by carrying the same weight into it. And before this night ends, there are 5 things that must be left behind if you want the next year to truly feel different. Leave behind unresolved anger and resentment. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the first things that must be left behind before a new year begins is anger that you keep revisiting in your heart. Not anger that comes and goes, but the kind you return to again and again. You remember what was said, how you were treated, how unfair it felt, and each time you remember it, the heart tightens all over again. You may not speak about it to anyone, but inside it is still alive. Many people do not realize how much energy this anger takes from them. It affects the way you respond to others, the way you see people, even the way you make decisions. You become cautious, defensive, and tired without knowing why. And sometimes you say, I have moved on, but deep down the heart still carries the weight. My brothers and sisters, if you keep reopening a wound, it cannot heal. Holding on to anger does not change what happened. It does not rewrite the past, and it does not bring peace to the heart. In fact, most of the time, the person who hurt you is not even aware of how much space they still occupy in your thoughts. You are the one carrying it, and you are the one feeling its heaviness. This is why anger is so dangerous when it stays for too long. Letting go does not mean you deny your pain. It does not mean you excuse wrong behavior. It means you choose your well-being over constant inner struggle. It means you trust that justice, fairness, and healing do not always come through holding on, but sometimes through releasing. A heart that is constantly angry finds it difficult to feel calm, even when life becomes easier. As this year ends, ask yourself honestly, how many moments of peace were stolen because you kept returning to the same hurt? If you truly want the next year to feel different, then this is where you begin. Leave behind anger that no longer serves you. A lighter heart is not created by changing the calendar, but by changing what the heart refuses to carry forward. Leave behind comparing your life to others. Another heavy thing that must be left behind before a new year begins is the habit of comparing your life to the lives of others. It is very common and it is very dangerous. You look at people around you, you look at what they have achieved, how quickly things seem to work out for them, and quietly you begin to question yourself. You begin to wonder why your journey feels slower, why your progress looks different, why your struggles seem longer, and without realizing it, comparison steals your peace. Comparison makes you blind to your own blessings. It makes you forget how far you have come because you are too busy looking at where someone else is standing. You forget the nights you survived, the patience you showed, the strength you did not even know you had. Social media makes this even worse because you only see the good moments of others, never the tears, never the fear, never the struggles behind closed doors. Yet you compare your entire life to someone else's best moments. The Quran reminds us clearly that people are not given the same tests, the same timelines, or the same measures. Allah says, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَا. This verse reminds us not to wish for what has been given to others, because every person has their own portion and their own path. My brothers and sisters, your portion was never meant to look like someone else's. Your story was written with wisdom, not with comparison. When you constantly compare, you begin to feel ungrateful even when blessings are present. You begin to rush what was meant to unfold slowly. You begin to doubt yourself, and sometimes even doubt the plan of Allah without saying it out loud. But peace does not come from having what others have. Peace comes from accepting what was written for you and trusting that what is meant for you will never miss you. As this year ends, ask yourself honestly how many times comparison made you feel smaller, slower, or less worthy. Ask yourself how much joy was stolen simply because you kept looking sideways instead of forward. If you carry comparison into the new year, you will carry unnecessary sadness with it. But if you leave it behind, you make space for gratitude, clarity and contentment to grow. The next year does not need you to be someone else. It needs you to walk your own path with trust, patience, and dignity. Leave behind comparison and you will find that your heart begins to breathe again. Leave behind guilt that you were never meant to carry forever. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most painful things people carry into a new year is guilt that has stayed far longer than it was meant to. Not the kind of regret that pushes you to improve, but the kind that keeps reminding you of who you used to be, what you failed to do, and where you fell short. You replay your mistakes quietly, sometimes at night, sometimes when you are alone, and even though time has passed, the heart still feels stuck there. There are people who say, I have changed, yet deep down they still see themselves through the lens of their past. They judge themselves more harshly than anyone else ever has. They believe that because they once failed, they will always be behind. Because they once fell, they do not deserve ease. Because they made mistakes, they must keep paying for them emotionally. My brothers and sisters, this is not growth. This is self-punishment. Guilt has a purpose, but it has a limit. It is meant to wake the heart, not imprison it. It is meant to guide you back, not convince you that you are beyond repair. When guilt stays too long, it begins to weaken hope. It makes you feel unworthy of forgiveness, unworthy of mercy, unworthy of a fresh start. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop expecting good for yourself. Many people think carrying guilt makes them humble, but in reality, it can make them despair. They say, I am not good enough. I will never be consistent. I ruined my chances. But the truth is, if guilt was meant to stay forever, there would be no room for renewal. There would be no reason to try again. There would be no meaning in turning back with sincerity. A person who keeps dragging old mistakes into every new moment cannot fully move forward. Every step feels heavy. Every good deed feels small. Every effort feels late. And yet, the door of change was never closed. It was only blocked by the belief that the past defines the future. As this year ends, ask yourself honestly, how much of your sadness came from mistakes you already learned from? How much of your fear came from moments you already left behind? If you truly want the next year to feel different, then you must stop treating yesterday as if it still owns you. Leave behind guilt that no longer pushes you toward goodness. Carry instead awareness, humility, and the intention to keep improving. A heart that releases unnecessary guilt becomes lighter, more hopeful, and more willing to grow. And sometimes the biggest sign of progress is not perfection, but the courage to move forward without chaining yourself to who you once were. Leave behind neglecting your heart while fixing everything else. One of the most common mistakes people carry into a new year is neglecting their heart while trying to fix everything around them. You work on your job, your income, your studies, your responsibilities, your family matters, and your plans. You stay busy, you stay occupied, you stay tired, and yet inside something feels unsettled. You tell yourself you will rest later, reflect later, slow down later, but later never comes. Many people do not realize that the heart also needs attention. Just like the body becomes weak without nourishment, the heart becomes exhausted when it is constantly ignored. You may continue functioning, smiling, fulfilling duties, but deep down the heart feels dry. And when the heart is neglected for too long, even good things stop feeling satisfying. You achieve something, but the joy fades quickly. You reach a goal, but the peace does not stay. You wonder why you still feel heavy when life looks fine on the outside. This is because the heart was never meant to survive on movement alone. It was meant to be cared for, checked, and gently corrected. When the heart is constantly rushed, constantly distracted, constantly overstimulated, it begins to lose clarity. You become reactive instead of thoughtful. You become overwhelmed instead of grounded. You begin to feel irritated without knowing why, impatient without realizing it, and disconnected even in moments that should feel meaningful. Some people confuse neglecting the heart with strength. They say, I don't have time to think, I just push through, I keep myself busy. But my brothers and sisters, ignoring the heart does not make you strong. It only delays the moment when exhaustion catches up with you. And when it does, it comes quietly. You lose motivation, you lose focus, you lose the sweetness in things you once enjoyed. The heart needs moments of stillness. It needs time to breathe. It needs moments where you step away from noise and allow yourself to reconnect, not with distractions, not with endless scrolling, not with constant entertainment, but with awareness, with honesty, with remembrance. A heart that is never given space cannot process pain, cannot release stress, and cannot grow. Many people say they feel spiritually empty, but they have not actually checked in with their heart for a long time. They have not asked themselves what is weighing them down, what they are holding on to, what they are avoiding. They keep going forward without cleaning what is inside, and then they wonder why the same patterns repeat year after year. As the year ends, this is an important moment to pause, not to judge yourself harshly, but to be honest. Ask yourself how often you allowed your heart to rest. Ask yourself how often you listened to it instead of silencing it. Ask yourself how often you turned inward instead of escaping outward. A neglected heart becomes confused, and a confused heart struggles to find peace. Leaving behind neglect does not mean abandoning responsibilities. It means balancing effort with care. It means understanding that your inner state affects everything else. When the heart is calm, decisions become clearer. When the heart is nourished, patience grows naturally. When the heart is attended to, even difficult days feel manageable. Entering a new year with the same pace but without the same awareness will only repeat the same fatigue. But entering with intention, with moments of reflection, with space for your heart to reconnect, changes everything. Sometimes the biggest improvement is not doing more but listening more. Not pushing harder but caring deeper. My dear brothers and sisters, do not underestimate the importance of your heart. If it is ignored, everything else eventually suffers. If it is cared for, everything else finds balance. As you step into the new year, leave behind the habit of neglecting your heart. Give it attention, give it honesty, give it room to heal. Because a heart that is looked after carries strength quietly, and that strength lasts far longer than anything built on exhaustion. Leave behind habits that drain you without making noise. There are habits that harm a person loudly, and then there are habits that harm quietly. The loud ones are easier to recognize, but the quiet ones are far more dangerous. They do not announce themselves, they do not shock you. They simply stay day after day, slowly draining your peace, your focus, and your energy. And many people carry these habits into a new year without ever realizing how much they are losing because of them. These habits often look harmless. They feel familiar. You tell yourself, it's not that bad, or everyone does it, or I'll deal with it later. But over time, they shape how you think, how you react, and how you feel inside. They affect your mood, your patience, and your connection with meaning. You may not feel immediate damage, but you feel tired more often. You feel distracted more easily. You feel less present, even in moments that should matter. One of the signs of draining habits is that they leave you emptier than before. You spend time on something, but instead of feeling refreshed, you feel heavier. You engage in certain conversations, but instead of clarity, you feel confusion. You expose your mind to certain content, but instead of motivation, you feel restless or dissatisfied. These are not coincidences. The heart reacts to what it is fed. Many people say they want a better year, but they do not change what they repeatedly allow into their daily routine. They want peace, but they surround themselves with constant noise. They want focus, but they keep welcoming distraction. They want growth, but they stay attached to habits that pull them backward. A new year cannot overpower daily choices. What you repeatedly do shapes what you repeatedly feel. Some habits drain faith quietly. They weaken awareness without openly rejecting belief. You still pray, you still intend good, but the heart feels distant. This happens when the mind is constantly occupied, constantly stimulated, constantly busy with things that do not nourish the soul. The heart becomes restless, and restlessness slowly turns into emptiness. Other habits drain emotional strength. Constant overthinking, revisiting the same worries again and again, staying in environments that exhaust you but feel familiar, saying yes when you should say no, carrying responsibilities that were never meant to be yours alone. These habits do not look sinful or wrong, but they still cost you peace. And then there are habits that drain hope, repeating negative thoughts about yourself, constantly expecting the worst, speaking to yourself in a harsh way, reminding yourself of failure more than progress. Over time, these habits shape your self-image. You begin to believe the negative voice is reality, and slowly, confidence disappears. My dear brothers and sisters, what makes these habits dangerous is that they feel normal. They blend into daily life so smoothly that you stop questioning them. But just because something feels normal does not mean it is healthy. Just because you are used to something does not mean it deserves to stay. As this year ends, this is a moment for honest reflection. Not dramatic change, not extreme decisions, but honest awareness. Ask yourself what repeatedly leaves you feeling drained. Ask yourself what takes more than it gives. Ask yourself what quietly weakens your peace. These questions matter because answers to them determine how the next year will feel. Leaving behind draining habits does not mean your life will become easy. It means your energy will stop being wasted. It means your effort will begin to feel meaningful again. It means your heart will slowly regain its strength. Progress feels lighter when you stop carrying unnecessary weight. A person who enters a new year with the same habits but new hopes will often be disappointed. But a person who enters with the same responsibilities and fewer draining habits will feel a difference very quickly. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily. Calme replace restlessness, focus replace confusion, peace replace constant inénoise. My dear brothers and sisters, do not underestimate small habits. They decide the direction of your days. And the direction of your days decides the quality of your year. Leave behind habits that drain you quietly. Protect your energy, protect your heart, because what you protect today will protect you tomorrow. Leave behind the belief that you have been forgotten. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most painful thoughts a person can carry into a new year is the belief that they have been forgotten. Forgotten by people, forgotten by opportunities, forgotten by life itself. You see others moving forward, doors opening for them, ease finding its way to their lives, and quietly you wonder why your own situation feels stuck. You ask yourself why things take so long for you, why your prayers feel unanswered, why progress seems delayed again and again. This belief does not usually come from arrogance, it comes from exhaustion. It comes from trying for a long time and not seeing results. It comes from being patient longer than you expected. And when this belief settles into the heart, it becomes very heavy. You continue doing what you are supposed to do, but hope becomes weaker, expectation becomes smaller. You start preparing yourself for disappointment instead of possibility. Many people do not say this out loud, but deep inside they feel it. They feel overlooked. They feel like everyone else is moving forward while they are standing still. And this feeling slowly changes how you see the future. You stop dreaming the way you used to. You stop asking with confidence. You stop expecting good things to happen for you, not because you lost faith, but because you are tired of hoping. My brothers and sisters, feeling delayed does not mean you are forgotten. Feeling unseen does not mean you are ignored. There is a difference between silence and absence. There is a difference between delay and rejection. Sometimes things take time because they are being protected. Sometimes ease comes late because it needs to arrive in the right form at the right moment when you are ready to carry it. The problem is not the delay itself. The problem is what delay makes you believe about yourself. When you start believing that you are forgotten, you begin to shrink inside. You begin to settle for less than what you deserve. You begin to lower your expectations, not out of humility, but out of fear. And slowly, this belief drains your motivation, your confidence, and your trust. Think about how many times you survived moments you never thought you would survive. Think about how many times you were protected without realizing it. Think about how many doors were closed that later you were grateful never opened. These were not accidents. They were signs that you were being guided even when you did not understand the path. A person who believes they are forgotten carries life very differently from a person who trusts that timing has wisdom. One walks with heaviness, always expecting disappointment. The other walks with patience, even when things are unclear. And that difference changes everything. It affects how you make decisions, how you react to setbacks, and how you treat yourself during difficult seasons. As this year ends, this is a belief that must be left behind, not because everything will suddenly become easy, but because carrying this belief into a new year will poison your hope before the year even begins. You cannot build a future while constantly telling yourself you are overlooked. You cannot move forward while believing nothing good is meant for you. Leave behind the belief that your story has been abandoned. Leave behind the thought that delay means denial. Leave behind the idea that silence means rejection. Trust that what is meant for you is still on its way, even if you cannot see the movement yet. Sometimes the greatest preparation happens in stillness. My dear brothers and sisters, you are not forgotten. Your efforts matter. Your patience matters. Your sincerity matters. And when the time comes, you will look back and realize that the delay was not emptiness, it was alignment. Carry that understanding into the new year and you will find strength where you once felt doubt. Leave behind despair and walk forward with quiet trust. The final thing that must be left behind before a new year begins is despair. Not sadness, not pain, not difficulty, but despair. The quiet belief that nothing will change, that things will always feel heavy, that effort no longer matters. Despair is dangerous because it settles into the heart slowly. It does not shout, it whispers. It tells you not to expect too much. It tells you not to hope too strongly. It tells you to prepare yourself for disappointment so you do not feel hurt again. Many people do not realize they are carrying despair. They still wake up, they still go to work, they still smile when needed, but inside something has shifted. They no longer look forward to things the way they used to. They no longer ask with confidence. They no longer dream with the same openness. They tell themselves they are being realistic, but in reality, they are being protective of a heart that has been tired for a long time. Despair often comes after long patience, after repeated effort, after unanswered questions, after waiting longer than expected. And this is why it feels justified. You say, I've tried, I've waited, I've been patient, and still things did not turn out the way you hoped. So the heart quietly decides to stop expecting, not because it stopped believing, but because it is afraid of being disappointed again. But my brothers and sisters, there is a difference between guarding your heart and closing it completely. When despair enters, the heart closes doors before they have a chance to open. It stops you from recognizing small signs of progress. It makes you overlook quiet blessings. It convinces you that the future will simply repeat the past. A person who carries despair into a new year walks differently. They hesitate more. They doubt more. They lower their expectations, not out of humility, but out of fear. They stop asking fully. They stop trusting timing. They stop believing that things can unfold in ways they cannot yet imagine. Life does not always change suddenly. Sometimes change happens gradually, quietly, in ways you only understand later. But despair blocks your ability to notice these shifts. It makes you impatient with slow growth. It makes you blind to subtle improvement. It makes you interpret silence as absence and delay as denial. Think about how many times you thought something would break you, yet you survived it. Think about how many moments you did not see a way forward, yet time carried you through. Think about how many things you once wanted that later on you realized were not meant for you. These reflections are not meant to reopen pain. They are meant to remind you that your story has never been static. Despair tells you that the best days are behind you. Trust reminds you that every day carries possibility. Despair tells you that you missed your chance. Trust reminds you that timing is not always visible. Despair tells you that nothing is happening. Trust reminds you that growth often happens beneath the surface. Leaving behind despair does not mean forcing positivity. It does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing to remain open to possibility, open to improvement, open to outcomes you cannot yet see. It means allowing yourself to hope gently, without pressure, without demands, without impatience. Some people think hope makes them vulnerable. In reality, despair makes you small. Hope keeps you human. Hope allows you to try again. Hope allows you to keep walking, even when the path is unclear. Hope allows you to rest without giving up. As this year ends, this is not the time to carry fear into the future. It is the time to carry trust. Quiet trust, not loud declarations, not dramatic promises, just steady, calm trust that effort matters, that patience has value, and that nothing sincere is wasted. You may not know how the next year will unfold. You may not see the full picture yet, and that is okay. You were never asked to see everything in advance. You were asked to walk forward with sincerity, to do what you can, and to leave the rest to a wisdom greater than your own understanding. A heart that releases despair becomes lighter, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the burden of hopelessness is removed. And when that burden is gone, even challenges feel more manageable. You breathe differently. You respond differently. You move differently. My dear brothers and sisters, as you step into the new year, do not step in with fear. Do not step in with doubt. Do not step in with despair. Step in with quiet trust. Step in knowing that growth is not always loud, that progress is not always visible, and that your effort is never meaningless. Leave behind despair. Carry forward patience, carry forward intention, carry forward the willingness to keep going even when the road is unclear. Because a heart that still trusts is a heart that is still alive. And as long as the heart is alive with trust, the future still holds room for goodness. As this year comes to an end, remember that a new beginning is not created by changing the calendar, but by changing what you choose to carry forward. You have listened, you have reflected, and now the choice is yours. You do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need to feel completely ready. You only need to be honest about what no longer belongs in your heart. Leave behind what has already exhausted you. Leave behind what has kept you stuck. Leave behind what you were never meant to carry for this long, and walk forward with patience, with intention, and with trust. A lighter heart will help you walk further than fear ever could. Do not rush the process. Do not measure your journey against anyone else's. Take the next step with sincerity and allow growth to unfold quietly. Sometimes the most powerful change happens when you stop forcing life and start trusting the path ahead. Allah, we ask you to help us release what no longer brings us closer to peace. Help us leave behind anger, guilt, distraction, and despair. Place calm in our hearts, clarity in our decisions, and patience in our journey. Guide us in the days ahead, strengthen us when we feel weak, and grant us a year filled with wisdom, growth, and inner peace. Accept our efforts, forgive our shortcomings, and allow us to walk forward with trust and gratitude. Ameen.